Welcome back to the Level Up Life, Muscle and Mindset Mastery. I'm Adam. This is my brother in reps and redemption, Waz. This episode hits pretty close to home for me. Our guest, Dan James, he just got out of prison. We're going to talk about what most people don't see, the reality of prison life, the mental battle of coming home, and the fight to stay clean and free. Dan's not just a survivor. He's a father, former MMA fighter, and coach who's using that warrior mindset to rebuild from the ground up. This is about redemption, resilience, recovery, and refusing to be defined by your past. Let's get it. So Dan, give me a little background on yourself.
First of all, thank you guys for inviting me on the show. I appreciate the opportunity to share something, and I just hope that there's some growth from this. My background is, first of all, I'm 48 years old. I've done a lot of different things in my life. I was a chef. Of course, I was a cage fighter at one time. I was a martial arts instructor. And my hang-up is I'm an addict. My hang-up is when I'm sober, I end up doing these fantastic things in my life, and I'm helping other people, and I'm able to be a functioning citizen in society. And then when I pick up, I don't know how to put down. So I had to accept the fact that I have no control over those issues. And that's been the major hang up in my life. Every time I use or I relapse, I've been in recovery now for about 15 years, and I've had some great bouts of sobriety, but every time I pick up, I hit the brick wall again. It's never changed. It's never gotten any easier. I've never learned to drink or use like a gentleman, and it's ended me up in prison and incarcerated, for many, many years of my life now. It's starting to add up. So this time getting out, though, I put a lot of work into some different areas of my life. I started figuring out that I probably need to educate myself. I have this, great education from that school of hard knocks we were just talking about before the show started.
Yeah.
And it applies when I'm incarcerated. I can live in that shark tank in that environment and be on the top of the food chain there. But then when I get out here, none of that applies anymore in the real world. All that skill set doesn't really work out here well. And sometimes that ends me up, acting out, getting in trouble, things happening because I hold on to that old mindset. And this time, some things were different about this last incarceration. I hurt somebody. For the first time, I got charged with some violence, and it was somebody that was close to me, and we can talk about that in a second or whatever, maybe later on the show. But I had to start looking at the fact that when I relapsed this time, I lost control of what was physical. I finally had crossed the boundary, and somebody was injured over it, and that's scary. That's scary. Being a high-level martial artist, it's scary when you lose control of that and somebody is injured. And I was like, either they need to lock me up forever because I'm becoming an animal and I can't control this, or I got to make some changes. And I decided that I was ready to change everything if I had to, not just some things. I think most of the time when I got out, I was like, maybe I need to change the relationship I'm in, or maybe I need to change the job that I work, or I would change bits and pieces of my life, but I would hold on to certain pieces. And this time I told myself that whatever needed to be changed, whatever came up that was a roadblock that wasn't in the foundation of this rebuild, I was going to let go of it. I implanted this new thought in my head that I'm going to become teachable, instead of being ignorant and arrogant, to the fact that other people can show me things, and other people who care about me can guide me, because maybe I need some guidance out here for a change. Maybe I need to listen. Maybe I don't need to speak all the time. I don't have to be, the center of attention. Maybe I'm going to fall back in the crowd and watch some other people move and start to move like them because they're successful. And the major thing I did this time was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I've been in the cage, 20 times now. And that's a scary event too. We can talk about the athleticism of that and the resilience of that too. But I went back to college. At 48 years old, I signed up for college for philosophy. And what my thoughts are is I want to write some books. I want to get this put together and have a goal to try to educate myself enough that going through everything I went through, maybe I can make an impact on other people. Maybe all the suffering that I put myself through, because I'm responsible for what's happened in my life. maybe I can make an impact, and somebody else doesn't have to go through some of the things I went through if I start sharing that with them. So I appreciate being on the show with you guys. I think it's a great opportunity for this, new walk in my life, and it's cool to be here.
So something you just said really clicked with me, and it's something, I don't know if you've ever watched the Jay Shetty podcast.
I haven't.
It's a really good one. Something I recently heard on his podcast, and it's basically, when you simplify it down, it's when you do stuff for other people.
Yeah.
So you can look at that as service work. You can look at that as whatever it is. And I heard you say it. I can't remember the words you used, but that was the core principle of what you said. You're doing it to, the book and everything, to share, to try and help other people. So when you do that, I think, I don't think you can really go wrong.
Right. And I mean, he said in, our first conversation when you got out, right, where you knew the answer with what I said, but you thanked me for saying that because you needed to hear it.
Yeah.
You knew it was the right thing, but at the same point, it's not what we want to hear and how we want to feel, how we want to act, even though it wasn't complete destructive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the big thing too is you absolutely help other people. And you know that, right? Whether it's somebody that's young, that's fought addiction for a couple years, or a longtime addict, such as ourselves.
Right.
Right? I mean, I still learn things from people, and the thoughts, right, here and there, but I don't struggle with addiction anymore. But I'm still constantly learning because thoughts pop in the head.
Mm.
And thank goodness I'm not around this, or this to where I could possibly act, but I'm continually getting strength, whether it's conversations with Adam, it's hearing stuff from you as you're still going through it again. And there is nothing better or stronger than an addict when they're rocking, right? When they are clean and they're sober and they're feeling strong in that power, because we all get complacent. But when you come out and you're fresh and just not this time, I mean, the wisdom, right? And the power and that strength, it can't be touched.
I appreciate that. I do. And the funny thing, I'll bring it up. So what Waz is talking about, and something that I really want to bring up that I've changed this time is I decided to end my foundation on this rebuild. That when I got out, I think it's important that when you're down, sidebar, but I think it's important when you're down that you start the rebuild there. People say things like when you're in prison, like, oh, that guy's got chain gang religion because he's going to church, or, he's reading an NA book, or he's reading the big book, or he's going to NA meeting. Like, what is he doing? And like, it's a false thing. And it's better than sitting around in the yard talking about what you did in the past that brought you to that point. Mm-hmm. At least you're starting to make changes there. And if you're planting those seeds inside you there, then there's growth when you get out. Hopefully, is that those seeds that you started, planting while you were in there start to spring forward here, because you're preparing yourself for that. And that's what I started doing. But what Waz is talking about is you feel like when you get out that you owe yourself like to jump into a relationship. And I'm notoriously bad for that. And I've always told myself, I've been down this many years and this has happened to me. And now I owe myself some sort of self-gratification of the flesh. And truthfully, like, I don't owe that. What I really owe is figuring out how to get myself together so I could be good to somebody else that would be in a meaningful relationship that would have purpose, instead of just chasing like a carnal desire or something that's going to end up bad or drag me someplace else because I'm trying to figure out the quick, easy way to fix that issue that's not an issue. It's actually a hang up.
Well, it's dopamine, right?
Yeah.
What happens when, you're in the bed with the woman?
Absolutely.
It's dopamine. So it's similar to that same process, chasing the next high, right? And I know I can relate to that. So in my journey, I had an incident where a woman I was dating left me, and it was a pretty painful process, especially the way she left me. So that kind of kicked me into the first time I started IV use.
Right.
And then another time I was involved with a woman who basically the involvement, her parents were out of town. That was the checks that I went and cashed, that I got charged with uttering and publishing forgery, that I got sent to prison for.
Right.
And I used to think snitches get stitches, that type of thing, and didn't hold her accountable. So I ended up taking the full rap, and which also meant paying all that money back on my own. Well, fast forward, getting legal issues again, and I can't remember who said it. Might have been Big Andy. Someone told me, they're like, dude, 2 years. 2 years. Don't get in a relationship for 2 years. Focus on yourself. So I took it to heart, and it served me very well. And it's funny because 2 years, one day is when I met my wife.
Right.
So, I mean, I heard you say too earlier, unpack, like, you're willing to do whatever it takes. And I can really relate to that because that's where I was. When I got out of treatment from recovery court, I was like, I'm whatever it takes. I don't want that anymore. I want to be able to help people. And those two things right there, that hands in the air, willingness to change everything, and then being driven by just helping other people has been, it's done wonders for my life.
It definitely shows that. I'm like, we've been friends now for, I don't know, 7 years, 6 years.
2018, I think. So yes.
Yeah. A while now.
Yeah.
And you've just been successful in every move you make. And I have great friends. Like, and it's why I reached out to Waz the other day, because he said something, and another friend of mine said the same thing, don't jump into a relationship. And then Waz the next morning told me the same exact thing. So I hit him up, because Waz is in my foundation, because he's solid, because he cares about me enough to say, hey, I've seen you fail for this reason before. Would you listen to this little bit of advice I give you? And it hits home, because my ears are open for a change. I'm trying not to make the same mistakes I've made over and over again. So when more than one person that cares about me is telling me the same thing, maybe I should listen to that advice. Maybe it is me. Maybe it is me, and I need to clean up my side of the street on this one. And when somebody's willing to give you some solid advice about what they think is going to help you succeed, then I need to follow that. And that's why I talked to Waz the other day about it. We talked, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes in the morning. It was a real quick conversation. We just touched base, but I knew I had a rock in my foundation that I could stand on, somebody that was going to give me good advice, was going to answer my phone call when I called, and he was there for me. And that's important, getting out. It's important.
So let's talk about that, like, not necessarily getting out, but so I did 2 years, and it's a different atmosphere in there. So I want to hear, about your experience inside, because I know, and I don't know, a lot of our viewers out there may not know, and I don't know if it's still like this. It would have been 2008, 2009. The lines for the chow hall are segregated. Now, this is it wasn't by DOC. It was literally by choice of the inmates. So there was the black line and then the non-black line. And you didn't eat, like, I had people tell me when I went in there, don't eat on that side. That's not for you.
Right.
So one aspect of it, and that really just stuck with me, is like,
the segregation part of it?
Yeah, the inmates chose that in 2009, not
right.
This isn't like 1950, 1940.
It is such a crazy world, and you live like that. There's a time that, like, certain groups get in the shower, and that's their time for that, and you definitely don't invade into that, time. There's a certain time for the phone. Sometimes certain gangs are running the phones, and you have to be someone on an upper echelon to even use the phone, or else you have to pay for those things sometimes. Yeah, it's wild to live, like we were talking about. You live in a shark tank, and if you're just a piranha or a barracuda, they don't stand up to a shark very well. And then some people are killer whales in there, and and those are the rock bosses, and those are the people. And so to come out here and you're living in a constant threat of violence, you're living in a constant segregated area because of color, gang affiliation, religion, all those things sort of play into it. And then you come out here and you're just thrown back into society. It can be difficult. It can be difficult. I think that the most important thing with that is not to allow yourself to be ignorant to the fact that that's racism and that's segregation and that's biased. You have to look at it from the outside in, and sure, you have to follow certain parts of those rules to be safe, but at the same time, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to sell yourself that thought that that's okay. I don't hate anybody. I really don't. I think I hate ignorance. I don't hate somebody because of their religion. I don't hate somebody because of their race. I don't hate them because of their sex or their sexual preference. But I do hate it if you don't understand me and you're just ignorant to the fact of me. And it's sad. And it's sad. And it's tough too, though, when you've done years. I've got 12 years incarcerated now, total on 3 different bits. And it does start to add up, and your overall thinking, how you evaluate the world. Everybody's not out to get you. You can actually sleep with both eyes open out here because I can lock my door. And it's okay to feel safe in that. And you should feel safe in your own home when you come home. But the first couple of days when I got out this time, I realized that it was hard to even fall asleep because the adjustment of just the difference in the noises, not having a light on in the hallway, complete darkness spooks me out a little bit still because I can't see what's going on, but I hear noises on the outside of the darkness. So it's hard for me to fall asleep. And I almost want to go plug a nightlight in just so I can fall asleep at ease. And those things are it's the small little things in your structure that you don't realize are really big. You eat chow every morning at 6:30. You eat lunch every day at 11:30. Dinner's at 4:30. And then you get out, and now I got to decide what to eat for breakfast and what time I'm going to have breakfast. And there's 1,000 options, so there's stress value there. Do I eat cereal, or do I try to smash some eggs for some protein? Or, what are my options? And you don't realize that by dinner time, you're just stressed out about the fact you had to pick your own meals for 3 days. And it adds this huge stress factor in life. And then you're looking for a job, and you're trying to figure out how to get car insurance, and you're all these things. And at the end of the day, there was a couple of days where I was like, man, it was more comfortable when I was in there.
Yeah, it's just so much.
Yeah, it's absolutely overwhelming. One of the most intelligent things I did is I went to halfway housing when I got out this time because I knew that I needed a little bit of structure still. I needed, not that I needed to be told what to do completely, but knowing that I had a few boundaries that I had to be in allowed me to have enough structure to where I could step out of the boundaries and be safe and know that I could still come home and have some structure. And I don't think it's forever, definitely, it's a transition, but I think that it was really valuable for me to accept that, that it was okay to admit that I wasn't going to be perfect when I came out, that I wasn't going to be this huge, gym operator again, or I wasn't going to have my own restaurant again right out the door. I mean, those things can come with time if that's what I want. And that's what I want to work towards, but it's about taking those steps forward in that direction and having the security to know that when I come home at night, I still have somebody who's giving me a little guidance. I still got some friends in my foundation that give me a little advice, and I'm still able to rest my head at night and know that I'm safe without being overwhelmed all at one time, because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. I compare it to there's a carousel going. And when you get out, you just stick your arm out and you grab a hold of the first horse that's moving by you, and you hope it's the right one, because the world's moving, it's spinning fast, and there you're at a standstill, and there, where you leave emotionally, you're stuck there. My children, when I left, one of them was 8 and she's 10 now. I didn't watch her grow over the last 2 years, but so much changes in a child's life over that time, and each one of my children has become a different child than when I left, but I remember them there, so I'm trying to communicate with them on that level, and they're like, hey, Dad, I'm over here now. and that's hard because it breaks your heart because I missed out a chunk of their life. You know, if you had a significant other when you left, they move on. The sad fact is they move on, but emotionally you still have those same feelings for that person because you've had no chance to have feelings for anybody else. So that's difficult to see them with somebody else and being happy. And I had to sell myself on that. I call it the BOGO deal. If two other people can go be happy and I got to take a little bit of pain, well, I just got to accept that into the universe, you know, because I was the one that caused me to go away. It wasn't them. They had to move on and grow so they could be healthy. And somebody else is happy with that person now too. So I was the one that messed up. I got to deal with the pain so they can be happy. And it helps me. It helps me to realize that. And it's difficult though. Some people are still mad at you. Like when you get out, it's like, hey, I went and served my time. You know, I'm done with that. But a lot of your friends are like, I remember the day you left and it was this huge police chase and it was 10 hours the helicopters were chasing you. They were shutting schools down and all these things were happening in town. Like when you left, it was havoc. And now you want me to accept you back because you're telling me you healed. What I remember, my last memory of you was complete chaos. So you got to give me a little time.
Right.
You got to show me.
Yeah. Well, and it's some people won't always forgive you. I got a message so back in 2005, I wrote some of my own personal checks out to people and had them cash them in their bank. Well, when the money wasn't there, they prosecuted me, which is, you know, I was the one in the wrong.
Right.
I hold no ill will against them, and I've paid off my debts. But this is literally 20 years later. I got a message from someone telling me he's really happy for everything that I have in my life, but in his eyes, I'm always going to be a piece of shit. So it's not on me,
Right.
anything to do with him. That has to do with him. I've made my amends. I've moved on. I forgive myself for doing that because he was a good friend, and you can't always expect, you know, everyone to forgive you, and they don't have to.
No, you're right. You're right. And it's still hard though, because in your mind you live this fairy tale dream because there's certain things to get back home again, to not get caught up in gang affiliations and not get caught up in, you know, the havoc that's going on and not to fall completely into that, you know, convict mindset. You try to hang on to what you have on the streets, whether it's a friendship or a relationship or your kids, and that's what gets you home. That's kind of what keeps you out of trouble, you know, because you're grasping at straws. And then when you come out and that straw that you've been holding on to for months and years sometimes isn't actually the straw that you imagined it was, it's a little heartbreaking, but you have to grow from it. You know, you got to be resilient and roll with the punches. And for me, I started realizing like, this is my fault. Like, it's not somebody else's fault that this happened. Like, I'm responsible for this. Stop doing the dumb stuff and you'll stop hurting like this. Like open up your eyes and watch what you're doing and be aware that everything I do has a consequence or reaction, you know, and it can be positive, you know, or it can be real negative.
That's the power in accountability though. And everything you're saying, you're like holding yourself accountable. Well, and I remember when I was in treatment and I started holding myself accountable, like I am responsible for everything that's happened in my life. The same time I was going through that process and I was like, oh, this means that I have the power to do and make any change I want going forward. Just really, how hard do I want to work for it? And how dedicated can I be?
Right.
And there's certain things that are out of the question. Like within being realistic, I'm obviously never going to be president of the United States.
Right.
It's not something I'm going to realistically think about.
Right. Yeah. Why would you want that goal anyway?
Right.
Have somebody else handle that. I'll just vote for him.
Yep.
But I know what you mean. So I think keeping my goals honest and actually achievable is super important. Like, I don't really want to be a millionaire. It's not my goal, but I want to take care of my kids and I like to buy a house, you know, and I like to pay my bills and maybe even go on vacation at some point. So I got to like tone down my thoughts, you know, and not chase, you know, wild fantasy dreams. And so since I've been out, I've gotten a job. I've been out about 13 days now total. I got a job. I started college. I've been to, I don't know, 9 NAA meetings and Pure 360, nine recovery meetings. So I got those things rolling, you know, and I started getting my schedule back or get a routine back. And I still need to fill in a few more blocks. I got to get my workout times in now, but I really couldn't figure that out until I figured out my work hours and my college hours and my meeting hours, because those were priority. Right. You know, I mean, I got to take care of myself physically, and we all know that that's part of our recovery and how we stay healthy. All of us agree with that. But there was key elements before I could, you know, worry about that I had to get those other things in line first. So there's positive things that have happened in my life, and they happen pretty quickly. A friend of mine sold me his vehicle right when I got out, and he said that, you know, I could pay him when I got my student loan money, which is going to happen in a couple of weeks, which is amazing. Because, you know, you can actually borrow money to go to college, and transportation is one of the things you can borrow some of your student loan money for. So that was a savior right there for me. But I got all these things stacked up. And now I've decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit with those things for just a few minutes before I start reaching out for more things, because I got a bunch on my plate already. You know, I just stacked up these things on this building, and now I need to like make sure they're secure. You know, I need to make sure that I'm getting to work on time, and I need to make sure that I'm making the grades I need to make in college, because I'm paying for that stuff now. And you know, I got to do a little work on the vehicle that I bought, and I need to secure what I've just accomplished down. So before I start reaching out even further, like I'm just going to start, you know, taking over the world in the next month or something, I got to like downsize a little bit and control what my environment I've created is, and make sure I have control of that before I go to the next level of it.
Yeah, it's having that plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're killing it so far, right? Having that plan. And like you said, the next step, that's what we talked about part of last week. You know, after that is things are falling into place. I'll be getting with you guys coming to the gym.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's huge for us in that outlet, right? And like you said, you're used to that Shark Tank, right? And that mentality. That's where you can get it out.
Yeah.
That's where that shark now is at the aquarium. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's under control.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still there. And how you get through. Because I've seen the badass Daniel. I've met you were killing it when we first met.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, and you were painting. I was putting down some flooring, and we were getting that gym ready to rock.
Yeah.
And you had, I don't know how long of a run you had at that point, but you were solid. You know, and it was like, this dude is some good shit. You know, and heck, you trained my one kid a little bit there, and even though they were a little reluctant because it was all about wrestling, and they didn't want to learn how to be good off their back, because being on the back was
it's the opposite of wrestling, right?
Yeah.
It's totally opposite. Jiu-jitsu and wrestling are two opposing styles for sure.
Yep.
But
now let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Pine Haven Assisted Living. At Pine Haven Assisted Living, they believe in making every resident feel at home. Nestled in the peaceful countryside of Hemlock, Michigan, they offer compassionate care in a family-like environment where residents can enjoy independence with the support they need. Registered nurse-owned and operated, their team provides personalized care, home-cooked meals, and a range of activities to ensure your loved ones continue to live a fulfilling life. They also have alpacas and llamas on site to enrich the lives of their residents. Experience the warmth and comfort of Pine Haven. Call them today at 989-295-6632. That's 989-295-6632. Or you can visit them on their website at pinehavenassistedliving.com. That's pinehavenassistedliving.com for more information. Now, back to the Level Up Life. I think of when you're talking about how you've got to this point and you just need to secure everything, kind of made me think about, I mean, if you think about a powerlifting program, there's always a deload, right? So you progressively overload
Yeah.
and then take a little rest. It's exactly the same thing, but for the brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is like you can't overwhelm yourself. And it's easy to do. So ideally, I always want to do the next right thing,
Mhm.
you know, and that's my mindset now. Like I'm done with all the crap. And I want to do the next right thing. So I set my intentions first thing in the morning. You know, what is the right thing for me to do today? But you can get overwhelmed because there's a lot of right stuff to go do. Before you know it, the 24 hours a day have run out, and all I've been doing is chasing the next right thing. So what are the most important things to do? What's going to make me the most secure right now at this moment, so I can get to the next step of something I want to do? So a lot of prioritizing is going on right now. I knew that I had to start generating money, so I need to get a job. I know that for the long run of my well-being, that the higher education is going to make the difference. I know that I have to replace that convict mentality, and I have wisdom there. You know, I go into an institution, and real quick, I know exactly the way everything's working. I know what gangs are on what part of the yard. I know who the gang leaders are. I know what officers are cool, what officers aren't cool. And real quick, I start maneuvering, and I'm okay in that environment. But because I have that knowledge of that, and I've been there, like I said, for 12 years, you know, but now when I go to college, I'm going to replace that, and I don't want to call it garbage because it's kept me alive through those years. But I replaced that wisdom that I don't need anymore with wisdom that's going to cause me to go to the next level out here. It's going to be what I've really, in my 20s, I didn't get to go to college like most people did. I did a 10-year bit in prison in Florida. So I missed that opportunity. And that's where a lot of people are like, hey, you're just making silly mistakes. Why are you doing that? And it's because the education I have when I was 20 tells me that those are the things I should be doing, sadly. Is it wrong? Yes, it's wrong. So I got to replace that with this higher education. So that's, you know, a key in this rebuild too. Right now is seeking out the right knowledge and the right wisdom to make things happen. But yeah, I got a little sidebar there talking about college. I get excited about it, honestly.
No, I'm excited for you, man,
I do.
because any way you can improve yourself,
Mm.
it's going to trickle out to everyone you interact with, your kids,
Mhm.
any family, any friends. Like
Mhm.
when we can improve on who we are, it's a ripple effect, just goes outward. I learned
Yeah.
something new and teach Waz, and then it's vice versa, right?
Right.
He learns something new, we give each other tips, just ripples out.
We always just say in jiu-jitsu that iron sharpens iron. You know,
Yeah.
if I want to become better at something, leg locks or arm bars or, you know, different chokes, I need to go to the guys that are good at that. And then I need to roll with those guys. And it's the same with us all sitting here now. Like, I'm so blessed you guys invited me on the show so we could have these conversations right now and get this out. You know, it's huge because we're sharpening each other right now. Y'all are allowing me to vent my insecurities. Y'all are allowing me to be vulnerable. You're allowing me to be open on a platform that I just pray it helps somebody else. Maybe somebody else hears something on the show today and they don't have to go through the same thing, or maybe they realize that the struggle they're going through, they're not alone. Like we all went through that struggle. You know, we all had to rebuild ourselves again.
Even, go ahead.
Even for the non-addict, person that's somebody who's not spent time incarcerated.
Yeah.
For the people that don't understand, you know, like the Dan I met in 2018 is still here. You're a good dude.
Thank you.
And there's thousands of people out there that are struggling with substance abuse that just don't have the resources. And that's part of it, right? Like for you to be able to share your story openly
Yeah.
will impact someone.
Yeah.
It may not be the addict. It may not be, you know, it may be a police officer that's like, you know, I didn't really think about it like that. It may be someone that's not even, they may have a grandson or, you know, that allows them to connect with them more because of understanding.
Right.
That's about exactly what I was going to say. The people that don't know, right? That have people placed in certain rows, right? The lady that might clutch her purse a little tighter,
For
right?
sure.
Or the guy, the guard goes up prison, what? Right? And realize, oh, you know, you talking the vulnerable, you hurt somebody this time. And wasn't in the cage, right?
Oh.
How that affects you, right? You're not a violent person, right? You trained as MMA, where it was a sport, not I'm gonna go get messed up and beat the snot out of people,
Right.
right? I'm gonna rob people because
Yeah.
I know how to do it. They can punch back and drop them down, throw them in arm bars, pull out their wallet, stomp their head, and take off. Right? That wasn't the guy.
Right.
And people seeing a different view, right? Because judging people no matter what, whether it's the race, the religion, the sexual preference, all that, or looking down on the addict or the person that has made the bad decisions and got locked up or what have you, right? It's not right because we all have a story to tell, no matter what road we walk. And
I think it's a good. So I want to bring this up real quick. So when I was in the jail this last time, I was going through it. You know, I was faced. Their first charges, they wanted to charge it with attempted murder. I had hurt my stepdad. I was getting high at my parents' house, and I should have never been getting high there. And my stepdad went to throw me out of the house, and he pushed me. And when he pushed me, I picked him up, I slammed him on the ground, and it broke his back in two places when I slammed him on the ground. And if I was never getting high at their house, none of this would have ever happened. So that's the catalyst behind all this. And then I had $10 worth of drugs in my pocket, and I take off running through the woods because my mom said she's calling 911. And I just want to get rid of the drugs for some reason, and the adrenaline rush and how high I was. I just thought I needed to get rid of these drugs. And then I seen the cops pull up, and I ran through the woods, and I ran for 10 and a half hours. Helicopters, and they closed 2 schools down. By no means am I bragging about this. It was the scariest day of my life. It was January 8th. It was 34 degrees outside, so it was very wet. It wasn't snowing anymore. It was hypothermia, like over and over, and it was super scary. But I didn't mean to hurt my dad. What happened when he pushed me is I snapped into a defensive mechanism because I was so spun out that I grabbed my dad and I threw him on his back, and and I hurt him. And I lay my head on my bed when I was in the jail, and I faced the facts that maybe I deserved to do all that time because I couldn't control myself anymore, that maybe I'd become an animal. And maybe that if I couldn't figure out how to stop using drugs that were going to force me to be an animal, because I appreciate y'all telling me I'm a good guy. Like thank you both. I'm glad that y'all have seen that side of me, and I'm glad that y'all believe in that side of me, because it gives me the hope and the aspiration to do the next right thing again, because I'm on this thing. You know, I am rebuilding. I'm going to get it right, and I'm going to need y'all's help. I ain't even gonna lie. Like, I'm asking. Yeah. Like build this thing with me so we can do this again. You know, we build a gym together. We built a successful business together. You guys are still rocking in it. I'm doing a little something else now. But y'all are the guys I need in my life, you know, and I appreciate that. But yeah, so hurting my dad was crazy. So I'm laying in the jail, and I'm super like depressed. I'm facing the facts that they might give me a life sentence on the 4th habitual, because I've been to prison already so many times, and I'm accepting that. And I started running. I started jogging barefoot in the gym, and I counted out a mile. It was 42 laps where I was at, and I started jogging, and I fell in love with it. And one of the officers, Haruska, actually is a runner too, and he caught me out there running, and he actually opens up the door, and he came and talked to me like a man. I was a convict, and he was the guard. He had a common interest that I had a common interest in, and it was running. And we talked for like 45 minutes maybe, about nothing that had to do with my case, nothing that had to do with anything to do with the jail, but the fact that I could just run and escape. And he treated me like a man. And I realized he was just a man. That I didn't see the uniform anymore, and he didn't see my uniform. And I wouldn't say that we became friends, but we started talking about running. Every time he would come on to shift, we'd talk about shoes that you wear, and strides that you take, and breathing, and you know, when you get into different levels of distance, and different runs that he had done, and it started kicking my interest. And then Monville, you know, the biggest guy in there right now, we would talk about working out, and he would joke with me. He's like, "Man, you look sick when you got here, and you're starting to get healthy again," you know. And one day he shook my hand like a man, and he treated me with respect. And I was like, okay, these people aren't against me, man. These people just want to see me get better. Like, I don't have to hate the cops. They're just doing their job. And they're treating me like a person, even though I'm like struggling right now. And because I couldn't talk to my family, because my brother, wouldn't talk to me because of what happened to his dad, because my girlfriend and I were going on the outs, because my ex-wife wouldn't let me see the kids. I didn't have anything but these other men that were willing to treat me like a man. And it changed my mentality. It totally changed my mentality. And it started like telling me like, I'm wrong in my thinking errors. I don't have to hate these guys because they got this uniform on. They're treating me like a human being. And I need that right now. And that's when I started fighting. I said, okay, I want to make some changes, and I want to make some changes in me, because when I start changing this in me, my wrong, my dark perceptions of what's right and wrong, when I start doing that, then maybe I got a shot at this if they let me out again.
Yeah. So I'm thinking back to when you said the incident with your stepdad happened and you were using at his house. That's kind of what was the catalyst,
Yes.
right, for the event. So in general, it's like I relate. I try and relate to everything anybody says in some way or another, because it's how we create connection, right? And I hear you saying that, and I'm thinking while you're talking, like, that was me. Like, I stole this check, went and cashed it, and these people, I was the monster in their story, right? They're the ones that looked at their bank account and seen this money was gone.
Right.
So I wouldn't have done that if I wouldn't have been dope sick using, and I think that's important to recognize, like, the difference, what we're talking about, like, when I think this is all addicts. There's the monster, I call him Slick,
Yep.
talks in my head, tries to get me to use, and then there's authentic Adam. And there's this internal dialogue, early recovery between the two. But I think we're all capable of, while we're using, some pretty bad things, right? And I think a majority of people in recovery, and I mean, a majority of people I know in recovery are phenomenal humans that will literally give you the shirt off of their back. They're just really good people.
Yeah.
They were also the monster in someone's story. So I think it's important to recognize, like, we're all the same in that way. And forgiving yourself is important to be able to move on.
Sure. And I totally 100% agree with you. Like, and then that's why I'm investing into myself now. That's why, the school and the things that I'm doing, getting back into my training and stuff like that. I'm even thinking about taking another fight, possibly getting set up for it at 50 years old. I don't know. It crossed my mind. But behind that too is pain causes us to change. If I don't actually accept the pain, if I try to numb it, I'll start using. If I try to hide from it, I'll start chasing women. If I start doing things other than accepting the fact that hurt me, then I have no catalyst to change. The same catalyst that caused me to hurt or become the monster that hurt somebody, I have to recognize there's other catalysts too. And the catalyst for my change is accepting the pain that comes from relapse. And the incidents that happen when I relapse, being that monster. And I'm not that person today. I'm totally not that person. I know that. But if I forget who I was, or I forget what happens when I decide to pick up again, if I forget how fast it goes the other direction, then it's a dangerous situation. It's a dangerous situation. And I don't have to live in that, in shame and guilt, because I have learned to forgive myself. And even my stepdad's forgiven me. And my mom and my brother talks to me now. So there's a rebuild going on. Like because I've actually taken responsibility, I've accepted what it is, and started addressing these issues. There's a major rebuild going on. I see my kids. My ex-wife lets me see them a few times a week, and that's gaining momentum. Now, I haven't been out that long, but I've seen my kids 5 times. Spent time with them, I think, 5 times now. Yeah. And then my brother and I are going out to lunch, not next weekend, but soon. Our schedules have conflicts right now, but we've already talked about it. I call my mom on Mother's Day. My stepdad does forgive me. You know, I'm not allowed to see him now because of the courts, but there's a build up for that that's going to happen. My probation officer give it 2 months, doing the right thing, and we'll talk about it. So it's nice to know that when you take responsibility for your actions, when you put yourself down for a second and sit in what's really happened and accept that, and then start making some changes, you know, some real honest changes, that you can rebuild, and things do come back to you. And things do come back to you in time. In time.
We grow in the discomfort.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's paramount, because when we're not ready to change, like you said, it's the cops.
Yeah.
It's this and that, right?
Mm.
But when we look in the mirror and we realize we're the blame and the cause of everything that we're going through, that's when we can change.
Yeah.
That's when we heal and when we get better.
Yeah. And that's the truth. You know, if I always have an excuse for what happened, then I'm not going to change. I'm just going to keep making up lies and reasons. And that's not why I'm working for me. It really hasn't. I'm getting a little tired of relapsing.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little tired of it, man. The drugs and the alcohol don't work for me no more. What I have started doing is accepting counseling, like listening. You know, like if you want to do rapid eye therapy because you think it's going to help me with my PTSD, okay, it sounds kind of silly to me, but if it works because you know something I don't, let's try it. Yeah. You know, let's try it. Like to me, the whole topic was not a great idea. You know, it seems silly, but if we got to do some silly stuff to get better, well, let's get silly with it then. You know, let's do whatever we have to do to get better. Yeah. And I love what you're saying too. You know, when we are weak, we are made strong. And it's that old working out thing. You know, when I exhaust my muscle, the next week I come back, I'm stronger. And sometimes in the refinement of us getting better, we have to go through the fire first. We got to feel the heat of what's happening to become a better person, a better man, a better functioning citizen of society.
Yeah, takes just a step at a time. I mean, I'm really cheering for you, man, because I remember back when that football bar came in, and when we first met and we were lifting together and taking picture by the sign, and you know, those were good times. And I look back on, I remember you getting pretty mad at me back then. We had a discussion about it. This was, and I from what I recall, it was, I think you took a fight and then you got hurt or something. That was like the snowball that led to, and I noticed because, I mean, what does the phrase go? Can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of knew the signs, and I remember seeing you kind of, you know, the face itch, and I was like, we went in the office, and I remember you getting offensive, and that was me when my mom would confront me. So I was like, man, and I was so new in it, I didn't really know what to do, and Buddy was there, and you know, I prayed for you since then, man. I know we haven't had a lot of contact, but.
And I don't blame y'all for not having contact with me when I'm doing the wrong thing, because it puts you in danger. You know, sometimes you got to let me figure that out on my own. But I know when I come home and I'm this guy sitting here with y'all now, I know y'all. I know where I'm welcome. You know, you never made me not feel welcome when I come home the right way. Because who wants to deal with me when I'm doing that? You know, when I'm being aggressive for you being a friend, when I'm telling you you're wrong and all you're trying to do is love me, like that seems backwards right now. You know, that doesn't sound like it should be.
How when we're using though, like my mom would confront me about stuff like that. Are you using, Adam? And I would be like, no. Really defensive. But that was slick in my head, trying to just grasp onto that, right? Because I wasn't ready to change at that point. So I had no hard feelings against it. I'm really glad, because there's a lot of people that don't, you know, they don't make it to that point. We lose brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I watched, you know, Jelly Roll, right?
Mhm.
Talked with Sheriff Swanson about him. I was listening to this podcast. He testified in Congress,
Mhm.
and his statement was, if an airplane crashed every day in the United States, wouldn't the government decide, like, we got to figure out what's going on? We can't have all these American citizens dying like this.
Right.
They would ground all flights temporarily till they could figure it out, right?
Mhm.
Because human life matters. And then Jelly Roll follows that up with, well, that's the amount of people in the United States that are dying from heroin or fentanyl every day.
Right.
And it's like,
Why
So-
aren't we looking at it the same way?
right, why are we doing more? Right? What can we do?
Yeah.
So my point of that is we lose people all the time, and I'm glad you're able to sit here,
Yeah.
you know. So
And if things get hard, make me that phone call.
I did the other
Right?
day. You
Yeah.
know, and
but,
it wa-
but I'm saying when you're feeling weak or
Yeah.
when you did mess up, I'm gonna answer my phone.
thank you.
Promise you and I guarantee you that always.
Thank you.
Right? I got your back. I call you my friend when you're good. I ain't turning it when you're not. Right?
That's what real friends do, and I appreciate that. I do. I can't say I don't think you're going to see me fail this time because I don't want to be overconfident. What I can say is today I'm doing the right thing, and when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to set my intentions and start doing the right thing tomorrow too. I can promise you that, and that's how I'm going to carry forward. I think y'all are going to get to watch me make something of this again. I think that it's going to be something that y'all are again proud to call me your friend. Like, no, that's my dude, you know. And I think that's what we're going to get again. And I'm glad on the ground level of this we're having this conversation because I think that, you know, it's great to express some fears. We talk about some things that I really haven't talked about in a minute. And you know, it's emotional in a way, but it's the reality of what brings us here because addiction is so ugly. Addiction is so ugly. I have their memory when we were at the gym. Remember before we opened the gym, me and you used to talk at like 6 a.m. in the morning. You would be up in the gym and I used to work out then, and we'd have these like crazy recovery talks at like 6 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
It was just cool, man. That's when I think we bonded as friends.
Oh yeah.
You know, as true friends. So and I need y'all, if y'all see me slipping, to call me out. Like, you know, to do the same thing you did before. Please don't be scared to do that. You know, I think we all need that. I think we do.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've learned is you fight for your friends, even when they're slipping, because that stat, I mean, one more time can be your last.
Yeah.
So I keep that in my mind because with my whole situation, knowing like all the stars had to perfectly align for me to be resuscitated. It's like, do I want to, you know, try and roll the dice with that? And then like all the hard work you're putting in right now, as that compounds and you build on that success, as you get years down the road, you develop more to lose too.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just like that snowball effect. I'm confident you're going to do well, man.
Thanks. I know. Thank you, Adam. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. Dan, thank you
Yeah,
for
thanks.
joining the show, Waz, as usual. If you haven't already, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the major platforms, go click like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.